This is a very special show we've got for you right ahead of the important event, all important event, which the entire market is watching out for, and which is the union budget. This is the first budget of the new government. So there are some concerns out there whether it will be a strong one, whether it will be some amount of compulsions of a coalition government would be reflected in this or not. Which are the areas of the policy making which the government would prioritize in decision making, and how exactly would the government go about doing a balancing act there? And we've got all our reporters, bringing exclusive stories. What kind of policy making and decisions could be announced? Which are the sectors which could be impacted? Basically, a sense of what is actually which lies ahead in this budget, because it's just less than a week to go. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will table union budget for this year. We've got exclusive details from all the sectors, all the key sectors, be it income tax, capex, etc. Let's go now and find out what exactly is happening on the proposal of providing some relief to the common man and the taxpayers, especially at the bottom of the pyramid, which has been reeling under pressure for some time now due to high inflation. Whether some relief is expected in terms of income tax or not, and my colleague Prakash is here to talk more about it. Prakash.
Yes, we are learning from our sources that the government is likely to provide some relief to the taxpayers in the upcoming union budget. We are given to understand that new tax regime is likely to be made more attractive with the announcement of some relief measures. Sources are informing that a new tax slab may be announced under the ambit of new tax regime in order to provide benefit to the maximum taxpayers. Along with that, relief is also expected for the taxpayers earning up to Rs 5 lakh in a year. Along with that, limit of standard deduction is likely to be increased beyond Rs 50,000. Along with that, the overall tax exemption with all benefit could be increased to Rs 9 to 9.5 lakh. So these are the specific announcements which are expected in the forthcoming union budget. Now, coming on to a capital expenditure target for the financial year 2025, sources are informing that there are no major changes are expected when it comes to capital expenditure target for the financial year 2025, and the government is likely to continue with the capex target announced in the interim budget. Some minor tweaks are expected based on the ministry's demand. As you are aware, that the government has announced allocation of Rs 11.11 lakh crore capital expenditure target in the interim budget, which is likely to be continued. Some specific sectors like railways, road transport and highways, rural development, housing are expected to get higher allocation. And despite higher allocation to this specific sector, sources are informing that the government will maintain its fiscal discipline roadmap for the financial year 2024, and beyond that, the government will stick to 5.1% fiscal deficit target or even lower for the financial year 2025, and 4.5% fiscal deficit target by the financial year 2026.
Right. So there are two important points Prakash is essentially bringing in. One, the likelihood of income tax relief, higher standard deductions, etc. is possible because it is aimed at the middle class. Tax relief likely for the middle class. The idea is to leave more residual income in the hands of middle class, and if you look at in the stock market also, the consumption categories are not doing very well because the middle class doesn't have much of residual money cash left. So they are down trading and in some cases budgeting their expenditure. So this relief is likely to be aimed at the middle class. The other point which Prakash was actually raising was the capital or capex investment. In fact, if you look at the last few years, including this interim budget, the capex as a percentage of overall expenditure is only edging higher. So they may not actually make any major changes. They may continue with the higher capex, which they have just announced, right? So it was hiked this time round. So even that level will be taken as positive by the market. There should not be any shrinking into that. Market is actually watching out for any holding on to the status quo on capex or taking it higher will be seen as positive. And Prakash is bringing us that there could be a status quo. That is something important. Well, also let's hear out Anish Shah, President FICCI, sharing his take on what's in store from the government regarding capex push in particular. Of course, he's also the chairman of Mahindra Group, a manufacturing led group. Let's hear it out.
If you were to look at the key drivers of reviving consumption, They are in the form of incentives, tax cuts, which is in a sense an incentive which is putting more money in the hands of consumers and hoping that they will actually spend. And third is the long-term capital formation, creating greater supply and creating greater wealth effect that trickles down to various parts of the population. But it's a function of short-term versus long-term. For us to be the manufacturing hub for the world, we've got to be lowest cost. We've got to have a much easier way to do business and be the highest quality. A lot of work has been done by the government to address these points. GST is one example in that because it brings down cost of doing business, cost of logistics as well. There is more work to be done on manufacturing competitiveness, but I think a lot of these building blocks are in place. We are future ready from an IT standpoint. We have a lot going for us as well, and India can lead the world on the technology front. So with all of these things, I think the key focus for us should be to stay on track, to continue looking at the long term as to how do we get India to be the manufacturing powerhouse of the world. And as we do that, I think it's just more about core execution.
From Amrit Bharat trains for the masses to running Vande Bharat sleeper trains, Railway Ministry is also eyeing for a massive transformation in the passenger segment this time round. All the cities, towns with a population of 75,000 or above will be connected through rail network. My colleague is joining us, Sameer Dikshit, on what kind of a transformation roadmap will be part of the upcoming railway budget, which is also a part of the overall budget. Here's he with more details. Sameer, tell us.
Government is going to have a big focus on the railway sector. Sources have informed that the budgetary allocation for FY 24-25 could be somewhere around rupees 3 lakh crore. Now the entire focus will be on Amrit Bharat train and Vande Bharat train. Why Amrit Bharat train? Because government wants to provide more non-AC coaches because the demand is higher from these travelers who are there for general class and the sleeper class. So already the instructions are out for the manufacturing of 10,000 non-AC coach in next 2 years. Railway has set an ambitious target to roll out 25 such Amrit Bharat train, or popularly known as Jan Sadharan train, this year. Long-term vision is to roll out 250 Amrit Bharat train in next 5 to 7 years. But when it comes to Vande Bharat train, so the first prototype of sleeper-based Vande Bharat train will be out for trial by 15th August this year. Then Railways is looking to roll out half a dozen sleeper-based Vande Bharat train for long route journeys, which is 500 kilometer plus. In addition to this, Vande Metro train is another specially designed train for intercity train travel up to a distance of 150 to 180 kilometers. For this, Vande Metro train trial will be started very soon, and Railways is looking to roll out 8 to 10 Vande Metro trains this year itself. Another interesting aspect is that Railways is looking to bring those small cities or towns having a population size of up to 75,000 numbers on the railway networks, and this may make a place in the announcement in the upcoming union budget. In addition to this, the freight revenues, what Railways is looking to increase or upscale, a target is to increase it by 20% for this financial year, and for the same, the digital help will be taken, especially super app is likely to be rolled out, and that will attract new players like the e-commerce entities or the parcel players. So they might be attracted with the new digital initiative. So that's what the government is looking at. But the entire focus will be on railway sector to improve the infrastructure and upscale it.
Okay, so this is a very important part of the budget and of the overall economy and the reform process which is going on for the last few years. So 30% higher budgetary allocation versus last year. 30% will be a very significant boost. Anywhere between 2.9 to 3 lakh crore kind of budget. There are three areas you need to keep an eye out for. One is passenger safety. There are almost half a dozen stocks which are listed in the Indian market, which actually provide inputs for the railway sector in passenger safety on signals, etc. The other is experience. When you talk of new category of Vande Bharat sleeper, you're talking about air-conditioned coaches. You already have a few companies in India which are catering, and their order books are swelling because of better experience of travel in railways, mainly due to higher air-conditioned coaches now. The other is infrastructure. Now these are wagon companies, these are railway coaches, manufacturing of railway coaches, signaling, and again, there are almost a bunch of companies, a dozen companies, which directly get impacted. And they're already reporting much higher, stronger order flow and improved visibility of the business. So if indeed a 30% hike comes in railways, this is the sector which gets a direct push, further push actually. Let's listen in to Tata Steel. Again, Tata Steel is one of the key companies which are providing for railway, steel for railway as well. And we spoke to Tata Steel top boss TV Narendran, expecting that this year's budget would be a capex focusing one.
Well, I think as steel industry and as Tata Steel, we've always said we want the focus on infrastructure to continue, because not only does it help steel demand, but it also helps reduce the cost of doing business outside the factory gates. So reducing the cost of doing business and improving the ease of doing business, I think is what is most important.
We'll take a short break on that note, but in the run-up to this all-important market event, which is the union budget, we spoke with a bunch of very smart people from the top brokerages and agencies, what to expect, starting with Nilesh Shah and a few others. Listen in.
Don't think the focus, the priority is going to change. I still believe this is going to be more an infrastructure and investment oriented budget. In the first place, clearly what the markets would surely not want is a hike in the tax rate. So I think that's something which probably the market is not prepared for. There is of course talk around it, but I don't think the market is really prepared for. And if that were to happen, that would surely impact the markets. On the expenditure side, clearly believe that the big focus will continue to be infrastructure.
For the U.S. market to stop being such a great big bull market. And I don't mean to become a bear market. If it becomes a bear market, everything will go down. But instead of going like that, if the S&P just goes like that, then of course people start to look for alternatives elsewhere. And then they would immediately notice India because of all its attributes. It is rightfully right at the top of the emerging markets. It's entirely normal, even in bull markets, that you get a correction of about 10 to 15% at some point during the year.
The fiscal, I would say, which expanded during the pandemic, but frankly, India wasn't an exception because all other countries also expanded their fiscal during the pandemic, is on a path of consolidation now, and we expect that to continue over a period of time. That debt to GDP number needs to consolidate to below 80% and probably get closer to 75, which is why we think that the government is very likely to stick to the fiscal consolidation path and target 5.1% of GDP in fiscal 25. But the more important thing is that going forward, also we expect that consolidation to continue towards 4.5 or lower fiscal deficit.
Be addressed.
3 spaces to watch out for. Shipping space. This will be a first one. Up till now, the government has not really announced a very categorical boost for the shipping and maritime space, which could be coming up. Watch out for defense shipping stocks. Watch out for names, all the dockyard companies, Swan Energy, stocks which have a big foot as far as the ship repair, shipbuilding, etc. is concerned. The second part is of course the housing. The low-cost housing or the affordable housing space has been a very big beneficiary. In fact, the companies such as Aadhaar Housing, Awas Housing and many others have been the biggest beneficiaries on volume terms in the last 5 years because of Pradhan Mantri Gram Awas Yojana. That could actually get a bigger boost in some other fashion. A fresh financial support of 50-60,000 crore in the form of interest subvention is likely. So watch out for affordable housing finance companies. Those could be the beneficiary of this scheme. And of course, the city gas distribution companies. You'd be surprised to know that despite of the furious bull market, the 3 companies, Gujarat Gas, IGL, these are the kind of companies which have not really done very well. Any kind of a boost over there, rationalization on taxes could be beneficial for city gas distribution companies as well. Moving on, we learn from our sources that the local shipping industry may also get a boost. We spoke about this with Prakash earlier, and now we have ex-shipping secretary and Mr. A.K. Gupta, ex-CMD of Shipping Corporation of India, also speak about the same.
There are no good training ships that we have in our country. We are over dependent on management companies. That needs to change. There has to be some incentive. Creating funds by giving, our local industry, they always demands a lot of financial packages in, funds. I don't think so. That's a way. We have to create policy environment, like we have been always been touting that too much benefit is given by the right of refusal to our local ships. It beats competition. And we have to, our shipping industry, local shipping industry has to create its own value in such a way that it's able to compete with the shipping lines. Extra regulation. The Merchant Shipping Act 1967 has undergone a number of iterations. Presently, we have been wanting to have a new Merchant Shipping Act. It is pending with the Parliament, I think so. So we need to pass a new Merchant Shipping Act.
Government has to support the shipping industry. It is not one-time measure. All the initiatives have to be concentrated. We have to look through a microscope whether anything is there for shipping in the budget. Having said that, we do expect that some boost will come for shipbuilding, some maritime development fund, what the industry has been asking.
All right, let's move on and talk about the financial services space, particularly insurance. What this budget has in store for the insurance space? Will the government announce measures to boost insurance sector? My colleague Anurag Shah, who tracks the space very closely, is now joining us.
A lot of announcements are expected in union budget related to insurance sector, and most important one is related to Insurance Act amendment as the draft bill has proposed about the changes in insurance sector, reform in insurance sector which will allow composite license, flexibility of solvency and minimum capital norms related to the minimum capital requirement, and companies will be allowed to offer value added services also. So this will be a big reform as proposed in the draft bill. So FM is likely to give mention about the Insurance Act amendment at the earliest. Another one is related to the scope and coverage of Ayushman Bharat insurance scheme, the flagship scheme which gives 5 lakh of coverage to 50 crore people. So now senior citizen above the age of 70 years also will be included, and this announcement will be made in upcoming union budget. Government will make an announcement related to the launch of National Health Claim Exchange, which will be the one-point platform for insurers, policy holders, TPAs and hospitals for claim settlements. So these are the main announcement related to insurance sector are expected in upcoming union budget.
Public sector insurance companies in particular, and of course overall insurance space, especially which ones have a life insurance part of the business pretty high around that. But auto and defense, this is also likely to get a fillip, because in the midst of the fast deteriorating global security environment and geopolitical issues which are developing, the finance ministry could give a big boost to the defense industry, announcing many schemes favoring them, especially focused on Make in India theme. Meanwhile, the auto component manufacturers are also seeking hike in depreciation rates on plant and machinery, and that will actually accelerate a lot of capex in that direction. My colleague Sumit Chaturvedi has got more on that. Sumit?
Well, in the eye of geopolitical disturbances across the world, the budget is going to give a boost to defense sector in India. Well, when we talk about what possibly could be there, well, there's a push likely for Make in India exports. That has been a long pending effort of the government to push Make in India weapons and export, making easy of these exports to different countries across the world. More relaxation is likely for export of defense sector equipment. As we said, there's a scheme for defense innovation system. Well, a lot is happening at manufacturing front, but R&D and innovation, that is going to be again get a push likely from this upcoming budget on 23rd of July. Then let's talk about overall how the defense sector is in India. Well, it's a target of 3 trillion rupees by FY29, a big target overall there. 6.2 lakh crore was for defense during interim budget. It was there. Current defense allocation is below 2% of GDP against 5% of GDP in many countries. So defense is going to be the big, we can say that, the receiver of this year's budget. But there's another sector which is unrelated from defense, but auto sector. Well, that's auto components. Well, certain demands have been made by auto component sector people, and it is hike in depreciation on plant and machinery. It's rationalization of GST on EV components. GST on batteries should be brought down. That's another ask. And incentivizing spending on research. So these are the asks for auto component sector. Well, that has been not given much push in the last few budgets, and it looks like it will be given push in this budget, the auto component sector that creates many jobs in the country.
Actually, the large auto component, the first 10 and 12 companies in market cap wise, which are the largest auto component companies, would actually be the biggest beneficiary, because they are the companies which are actually leading the big expansion, the capacity expansions, because they are the ones, of course, working most closely with the OEM. So watch out for the bigger auto companies if that accelerated demand for accelerated depreciation actually comes by from 15% to 25%. As far as defense is concerned, it's a slightly tricky one. Not that a lot of announcements are expected and very high probability that they may come. But what has happened is that this sector has already started factoring in a lot of positives. In the last 3-4 years, many stocks have become 20, 30, 40 baggers already. So don't rush into buying stocks just because there are big announcements on the defense space. Watch out for the definition in detail. For example, there could be widening of the categories in defense. More new categories will be likely to be added. Many of them, not the immediate, the most obvious ones, but radar manufacturing, signaling ones, many others. So watch out for and find stocks which are listed in that. Don't rush for the most obvious names. They have run up quite a lot. That is something important to watch out for. But auto ancillary, of course, accelerated defense is likely to benefit at least the top 5-10 bigger names in the auto ancillary space, because they have lined up massive capacity expansion. Talking of this space, we also spoke with Hiren Ved, Director of and CIO of Alchemy. Let's hear out what he had to say.
Just in India, it's actually a global structural theme, right?
Unfortunately so, but yes.
Unfortunately, fortunately, but it is a long-term structural theme. I think if Trump comes back, he's very clear. He's going to tell the Europeans to spend more on defense, and there are two wars which are going on simultaneously still, right? So I don't think that this is a short-term trade. Now, as I said, like in anything else, could that pack correct and go sideways for some time? It for surely can. But I think we have a long, long way to go. On real estate, we're still very bullish, right? I think we are in the early stages of what I think is a long-term cycle in real estate. And I'm more bullish on premium real estate than affordable real estate, right? Because the kind of wealth that has been created in the market is just astounding. And I think the starting point was very attractive because, the funny thing is that such a large asset class, you don't have a single stock in the Nifty in real estate, right? So I think we have long, long way to go. The sector is fairly reformed. It is now consolidated. More importantly, the quality of capital that is now available to this industry is far better.
All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Budget Fatafat, a special we brought to you on how to approach the budget from the market standpoint. With that, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. But closing trades will take the action forward on the other side of this break.